Hello, welcome to a special episode of From the Star Wars Home Video Library. I'm your host, Nathan P. Butler, and what I've seen over the years, over and over again on YouTube, is people putting together lists. Videos that are basically meant to be the entire Star Wars Home Video Library. The problem is that most of the time those lists are usually pretty bare-boned, only show different versions of the films rather than all the different home video releases, and often have big holes in them. As someone who has now compiled pretty much the entire Star Wars film and television series American home video library for Star Wars, along with a lot of other interesting stuff, I thought it was time to put together a timeline through video for YouTube that actually takes a look at as comprehensive a collection of the Star Wars home video releases from America as possible. Now, as was the case with previous versions of this video timeline, we are going to need some ground rules, and the first ground rule has always been US releases only. And while we are going to stick to that for the individual year listings in this timeline, every so often you'll see a Meanwhile segment that's kind of a sidebar. That is not a comprehensive place to take a look at foreign releases, but it will include some of the more notable ones to give you a sense of the context in which US releases are being released compared to what's happening outside of the US. So we will see things like the definitive collection from the UK on VHS, the VCD release of the original trilogy from Malaysia, and we'll wind up seeing stuff on VHS that wasn't in the United States, like Revenge of the Sith or the Ewoks TV series. Rule number 2, we're looking at official Star Wars fiction released through Lucasfilm that was aired on television or in theaters. So, making of specials do not count, they are not fictional. Something like The Mythology of Star Wars would not count because it's not an official Lucasfilm release, even though it was a television show, and it's also not fictional. Things like the Family Guy and Robot Chicken parodies, while officially aired on television legally, are not official Lucasfilm releases. They will not count in a main entry either, nor will something like the Super 8 reels being digitized by a fan, despite the fact that Super 8 reels themselves were legitimate releases. Rule number 3. We are talking predominantly about physical home video releases here for the United States. However, every so often, a notable digital release may be mentioned. If so, it'll be mentioned wherever it makes the most sense. In a given year's main entry, a Meanwhile segment, wherever. There will be no actual rhyme or reason to the exact placement of digital mentions. Rule number 4. We're talking about full versions of TV episodes or full versions of Star Wars films. So things that are only selected scenes or sort of clip shows do not necessarily fit in with that and will not show up in a main entry for a year. Again, they can show up, though, when noteworthy, in the Meanwhile sidebars. So something like the 8mm items, the Super 8 items here, those are not full films. They would not count for a regular year entry. That would also apply to the Video Now Story of Star Wars releases or the Story of Star Wars on DVD. Those are full productions, technically, but they're basically just clip shows of the films, were not aired on television, and are not part of an ongoing TV series, so they don't quite count in our definition of what this video is meant to focus on, but they can show up in the Meanwhile segments. We're going to start this video timeline a little earlier than the previous versions. We're going to start in 1976. And in 1976, there were no Star Wars home video releases, for obvious reasons. The film wasn't out yet. Meanwhile, though, it should be noted that while the film wasn't out yet, the Star Wars phenomenon had begun late in the year with the release of the novelization of A New Hope. 1977 marked the theatrical release of Star Wars, which would later be known as Episode 4 A New Hope, but with the film just entering theaters, there were no home video releases. Meanwhile, in 1977, alongside the theatrical release of Star Wars, which became A New Hope, we did have the beginning of Marvel Comics' adaptation thereof, which means that both Del Rey and Marvel are in play in this early era already, for those who read the books or the comics, but we also had some home video releases, albeit not of the full films. All of these were 8mm film releases, with these being in Super 8 on reels. So we have a short, about 8-minute reel here that is black and white with no sound, noted there as black and white up at the top. Then we have a color no sound reel, and a color and sound reel. Then at about double the length of that one, we had another reel, which includes even more selected scenes, which was released in both a cardboard package and in a clamshell case. Also in a clamshell case was another with entirely different content. If you were to watch this one, and the other one back and forth, sort of jumping between them rather than doing one and then the other, you'd have about a 30-minute version of the movie. Then, for kids, Kenner put out the Star Wars Movie Viewer, a hand-cranked film viewer, which of course had no sound, but featured short scenes running about a minute of A New Hope. They came in packaging like these, with the so-called movie cassettes, and 5 were released. Danger at the Cantina, May the Force Be With You, which was packaged in with the viewer, Battle in Hyperspace, and the oddly named Destroy Death Star, and Assault on Death Star, with no these available. 1978 featured no new Star Wars home video releases. 1979 also did not feature any new Star Wars home video releases, at least as far as full films. 1979 did see the very first Star Wars home video release of any kind on VHS and Betamax. This particular image here for you is showing you the VHS copies, and that was with The Making of Star Wars as told by C-3PO and R2-D2, released by Magnetic Video in 1979 after airing on television in 1977. This was also released in the UK, which gives us a chance to see here very early on that similar products released in different regions often had different packaging. 1980 saw the launch of The Empire Strikes Back in theaters, but again, no new Star Wars films released on home video. Meanwhile, in 1980, just like in 1977, we had Super 8 reels released for the current film in theaters. We have The Empire Strikes Back here as one short reel of selected scenes of about 8 minutes, and 2 longer reels, each about 17 minutes, which, if combined together, bouncing back and forth, would give you about a 30-minute version of the film. Oddly, the short one could have included sound on the actual film strip itself, but it didn't. Instead, sound was provided on a cassette that was included inside the package. Also in 1980, we saw the re-release of The Making of Star Wars as told by C-3PO and R2-D2, released the previous year from Magnetic Video, now with slightly different packaging, and a new trailer for The Empire Strikes Back tacked on to the end. 1981 featured no new Star Wars home video releases. 1981 did, however, see the Magnetic Video release of a double feature of The Making of Star Wars as told by C-3PO and R2-D2 and SPFX The Empire Strikes Back, released on Laserdisc. Full versions of Star Wars films being released on home video finally began in 1982. It began in May of that year with video rental only copies of the films. This is the VHS copy here, note Video Rental Library. And then above it here is the Betamax version. Now these weren't meant to be sold, but some places sold them anyway for $120 in 1982 money, which is quite a bit or more, to people who are willing to do a lifetime rental. Hey, pay us a bunch of money, you can rent it, but you never have to bring it back, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Later in that year, we had the first retail release of Star Wars, or A New Hope, on home video for purchase on VHS, and Betamax. Those came out in September. Just a month after that rental version hit, though, in June, there was the first Laserdisc release through 20th Century Fox Video. This is an extended play CLV disc. In order to fit the entire film onto both sides of one disc, with each side having about 60 minutes, they had to slightly time compress the film to be able to fit. Also time compressed was an August release in '77 of A New Hope on CED, which actually uses a diamond sort of needle, a stylus, to read from basically a vinyl disc that's a lot like an LP inside this caddy. Caddies could be in blue or white. Now during this year, 20th Century Fox Video merged with CBS Video Enterprises to create a new venture called CBS Fox Video, and the first of the Star Wars products to be rebranded, at least as far as film releases go, with that new CBS Fox label, was A New Hope later that year. So there's a 20th Century Fox Video version and a CBS Fox version, although the contents are identical. We'll see the same thing happening the next year to rebrand other releases. Also in 1982, with Magnetic Video being folded into the regular 20th Century Fox Video, we saw a re-release of the duo of Making of Star Wars and SPFX The Empire Strikes Back, released through the 20th Century Fox Video branding on Laserdisc. We also saw a release of it on CED. And you may notice here that this is a white caddy, generally a blue caddy denoted stereo, a white caddy denoted mono, though that was not always the case, as people would often accidentally switched them around. We then had a release of the double feature also on VHS and Betamax, both in drawer cases. 1983, the year the Return of the Jedi hit theaters, was all about reissuing previous releases, rebranding it as CBS Fox Video instead of 20th Century Fox Video. So we have the VHS release here on the left of A New Hope. Notice there, notable because it is a drawer case and it says stereo mono compatible in a little red stripe. Betamax, same packaging, the stripe covered up in this case with a blue Betamax triangular sticker. And then on Laserdisc. Again, same product, just relabeled with CBS Fox Video up in the corner instead of 20th Century Fox Video in the middle at the top. Again, the CED was already re-released the previous year. Meanwhile, in 1983, Japan saw this release of A New Hope on Laserdisc. It's notable because this is a non-time compressed version. In the US, the other releases were all time compressed so you could fit an hour on each side of one Laserdisc. In Japan, nope, they still went with an extended play CLV disc, but didn't time compress, so yes, there are 2 discs, so you can use 3 sides for the film here in this release. Alongside this, Japan also got the release of A New Hope on a format known as VHD, something that never really caught on outside of Japan except for a little bit in the UK. 1984 finally brought us The Empire Strikes Back on home video 4 years after it had been in theaters. But we start this year with a reissue of A New Hope. Now they're in the slim cases rather than drawer cases, still CBS Fox Video. And notice these are noted with the little red triangle that says Hi-Fi Stereo. There's no digitally mastered on these, and there's a reason for that. This is the last time you'd be able to pick up A New Hope with its original theatrical stereo audio mix, not tweaked at all. Then we have the original VHS and Betamax versions of The Empire Strikes Back. These do say Hi-Fi Stereo digitally mastered. We have the first release, again CLV extended play, time compressed for The Empire Strikes Back on Laserdisc. And then also time compressed on CED. Over in Japan, among other releases of The Empire Strikes Back, the VHD trilogy continued with this 2 VHD release of The Empire Strikes Back. 1985 brings us another re-release of A New Hope, and in this case also The Empire Strikes Back, on Laserdisc, only this time now on CAV's standard play discs, with surround sound for both, a first for A New Hope. Unfortunately, while these are standard play, which allows things like freeze frame and whatnot, some new features you couldn't get with extended play, and they are spread across 3 discs and not time compressed for the very first time on Laserdisc, yeah, they messed up and actually left the time compressed times on the back of the packaging. So many people picked these up and saw those times and assumed they were time compressed, even though unfortunately they weren't. The damage was done despite the fact that many Laserdisc publications ran articles specifically on how these were not time compressed like their predecessors. Meanwhile, also in 1985, Ben Burtt was supervising the remastering of the audio track for A New Hope. That new digitally mastered version would show up the next year on home video, and aside from giving greater dynamic range, would also restore C-3PO's missing line about how the tractor beam process worked that was missing from the stereo audio mix in theaters, and thus missing from all previous A New Hope releases on home video. Also in 1985, classic Creatures Return of the Jedi found its way to home video after being on television in 1983 from Playhouse Video. 1986 was another important year for Star Wars home video releases. It saw that new audio mix brought to the fore on home video in VHS and Betamax releases of A New Hope that restored C-3PO's line, and can be noted by the fact that they say Hi-Fi Stereo digitally mastered, whereas the previous release in '84 simply says Hi-Fi Stereo in its little red triangle. Also sporting the Hi-Fi Stereo logo is the initial release on home video ever of Return of the Jedi, here on VHS on the left, Betamax on the right. It also got a Laserdisc release. It is stereo extended play with digital sound, but most importantly, this is the first Star Wars film released on Laserdisc on CLV that is not time compressed. They didn't try to squish it, which means this is a 2-disc release to fit the entire film. Also not time compressed, the CED release. But since CEDs are in caddies, that meant that the CED release was pretty huge, you had to watch the first part of the film as Part 1 and the second part as Part 2, both in different caddies, making this perhaps one of the heaviest individual Star Wars films ever released on home video. I should also note here that while there is no content change to the film itself, The Empire Strikes Back was also re-released in 1986. All of the 1986 versions of A New Hope, The Empire Strikes Back, or Return of the Jedi on VHS feature a 10th anniversary trailer for the films after the video plays. There will be a subsequent release of this sometime between 1987 and 1989, though the dates I've seen for that tend to vary. Either way though, that one that comes later, which we won't feature beyond this point, is the same content, except it does take that 10th anniversary trailer and stick it before the film instead of after. Meanwhile, over in Japan, the Star Wars films, at least A New Hope to start with, got an interesting facelift on Laserdisc, which was much more popular there than it was in the United States, in something that wouldn't hit the US for another 3 years. That is the Star Wars or A New Hope Special Collection release, the first time that you could buy the film in widescreen. With the focus on better presentation with widescreen, of course, this is also a CAV release with 3 discs to make up the non-time compressed film. Unsurprisingly, Japan also finished out their VHD original trilogy with Return of the Jedi in 1986. This is also a 2 VHD set, but in one slipcover there, just holding both. Also of interest for Japan Force is that in 1986 we did see a reissue of all 3 original trilogy films in non-time compressed full screen, which indicates that Japan was already entering into that whole full screen and widescreen available at the same time type of model that we would see in the United States starting in 1992. Speaking of Japan, Japan also got a home video release of something that the US wouldn't see on home video for a few years, and that was an Ewok adventure, Caravan of Courage, on a CLV Laserdisc release. Meanwhile, back in the United States, Playhouse Video released its second of the 1983 Star Wars documentaries, From Star Wars to Jedi, The Making of a Saga, on home video. After so much hubbub in the last few years, 1987 was barren of new Star Wars home video releases outside of those reissues that may have been released this year or later, as noted previously. Meanwhile, over in Japan, though, the Star Wars original trilogy gets finished out as part of that special collection on those CAV widescreen releases that wouldn't get to the US for a couple of years yet. 1988 was the first time that you could actually buy all the original trilogy films in one set, but not a boxed set. This was the Star Wars Trilogy 3-pack. It was simply the 3 most recent releases, A New Hope, The Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi, as being reissued in the previous year and since 1986, put into basically a little paper wrap here, labeled as Star Wars Trilogy. Meanwhile, in Japan that same year, we saw a MGM UA release, rather than CBS Fox, of Ewoks The Battle for Endor on Laserdisc. Again, in Japan, the distribution worked a little bit differently. In this case, MGM UA, or MGM United Artists, as we'd see in the US, whereas the previous Ewoks film was through CBS Fox, but would only be through MGM UA in the US. In the UK, something happened that would never happen in the United States, at least not up to the beginning of 2018, and that's that Droids was released as a series on VHS. There were 3 regular volumes. Notice here I only have numbers 1 and 3. The second one is ironically entitled The Pirates and the Prince, the same name as the sort of bastardized, smushed together version that we would see in the US and elsewhere years later. Then there was a special VHS just for the Great Heap Special that aired after the series was over. And there was a Dairy Lee Cheese Spread Company mail-away for a 1-episode release called Tale of Rune Comets, although that kind of messes up the title of the episode. Now, for each of these, you had an entire arc collected. The Battle Against Size From, Uncharted Space, and then again Pirates and the Prince for the second one. But they could only fit 4 on each VHS, which meant that out of that 13-episode regular season, before The Great Heap came around, they could only wind up fitting 12 of the episodes across 3 VHS tapes. So the episode Kobe and the Star Hunters was left out entirely. So it's not a complete season set, but it's the closest thing we've seen to a complete season set since the US never got anything even close. The UK also saw a similar approach taken that year to Ewoks. Ewoks had 2 seasons on television of 13 episodes each, even though in the second season, 4 of the episodes were 1 story per episode, but all the other episodes were basically split between 2 half-length stories. So bear in mind, when I talk about episodes, I'm talking about entire half-hour episodes if you count the runtime with commercials here. The first 3 volumes here, these are all season 1, full-length episodes, 4 each, but again, there were 13 on television. The episode The 3 Lessons was left out. Season 2 is across volumes 4 through 6. Again, there were 13 episodes on television. They could only collect 12 here. So the episode with the 2 half-length stories, Browbeaten and Bag His Rival, is not included. There was also another of those Dairy Lee cheese spread mail-aways, this time for the episode Night of the Strangers, which again is mangling the title. 1989 was a rather important year for Star Wars home video releases in the US because it gave us the initial widescreen releases on Laserdisc of A New Hope and The Empire Strikes Back as part of the so-called Special Widescreen Edition. These are CLV extended play discs, as you can see down there at the bottom. Notice it is a CBS Fox video release here. They are based on those 1986 and 1987 Special Collection Laserdiscs from Japan, and they are not time compressed. So this, at the time, was the way to see A New Hope and The Empire Strikes Back for the discerning videophile. Meanwhile, not in terms of films, but behind-the-scenes material, from Star Wars to Jedi, The Making of a Saga received its second VHS release, this time, as you can see on the side, from CBS Fox Video. This is actually the one most people think is the original release, though remember, it's not. Playhouse Video beat them to the punch. 1990 was another important year for Star Wars on home video in the United States. We had Return of the Jedi, finally released in widescreen in the US, again based on the Japanese Special Collection Flawed Masters. This was not time compressed, but then again, neither were the others, but it's the first time you can see Jedi in widescreen in the US. Meanwhile, we also had the first time that there was a Star Wars Trilogy boxed set for the original trilogy, as opposed to just 3 tapes bound together with a piece of paper. This is that first brick, so to speak. You can recognize that it's the first, because if you look on the side, it says CBS Fox Video, not Fox Video. Some people are getting confused with this, thinking that it's from 1988, because if you look at the copyright info on the bottom, they actually have that 1988 copyright date for this logo that was on that little piece of paper wrapped around that original packed-together set of 3 tapes. If you look further in the copyright info, though, you'll see the real date, 1990. This was also the year that we started to see Star Wars television series and telemovies finally get home video releases in the US, although they had already outside of our country. Droids got 3 releases as part of the Star Wars Trilogy animated collection. We had the single episode release, The Lost Prince, and then volumes 1 and 2 of a double episode release, a special double-length edition. The first having The White Witch and Escape into Terror, the second having The Lost Prince and the New King. Ewoks had the same, a single episode release of The Tree of Light, and 2 special double-length editions, one with Cries of the Trees and The Tree of Light again, and one with The Haunted Village and Blue Harvest. Haunted Village there is the individual episode, by the way, not the feature-length version that we'll see later. This is also the year that in the United States, the Ewok telemovies finally made their way to home video. So we have the Ewok Adventure, also known as Caravan of Courage, so that was a name given to it when it was in theaters in the UK and elsewhere, and then added on for later home video releases. In the US, it was just the Ewok Adventure. It was released on VHS and Laserdisc. That was from 1984 and already released in Japan in '86 by CBS Fox Video, but notice this is MGM UA again. So this is a different company distributing it in the United States, same one that did Battle for Endor in Japan. But this one from '84 was followed by the Battle for Endor in '85, which saw Japanese release in '88. But in the US in 1990, we finally got it on VHS and Laserdisc, again from MGM UA. Before we leave this year, I should note some variants and an error from this year. Notice here, from a variant standpoint, that you have Ewoks, the Caravan of Courage release, and Ewoks, the Battle for Endor, both on VHS. No, these are not different covers. One pair on the left is just kind of faded. But take a look at the labels. You have a purely silver label for each with red text, or a sort of gray label with black text available for each of these. J2 Communications also had a pretty widespread misprint this year, where the VHS for the one-episode version of Ewoks Volume 1 actually has the label on it for the special double-length edition. This is just one episode. You can tell there, among other things, by just the amount of tape inside. But notice there it says Tree of Light and Cries of the Trees, whereas the single-episode version should only have the Tree of Light, and it's actually the double-length version that has Cries of the Trees and Tree of Light. These misprints seem to be far more widespread than ones that correctly just list the Tree of Light. Meanwhile, in 1990, we also have the home THX audio system WOW demonstration disc. Quite a mouthful here on Laserdisc, which includes that WOW montage with Star Wars content, along with the soundtrack featurette, which also includes some Star Wars content. This was reissued year to year through at least 1995 to help THX audio system owners optimize their systems. 1991 saw no new Star Wars home video releases. Meanwhile, though, the expanded universe was finally kicking off with Timothy Zahn's Heir to the Empire and Tom Beach's Dark Empire from Bantam and Dark Horse Comics, respectively. 1992 brings us some big new releases here. We have the Star Wars Trilogy Special Letterbox Collector's Edition. This is the first time you can get the films in widescreen on VHS. They are based on the 1989 and 1990 special widescreen editions from the US, which in turn were based on the 1986 and 1987 Japanese special collection discs. This includes From Star Wars to Jedi, The Making of a Saga as well. Then we have a reissue of the 1990 box set as the 1992 box set, this time slightly changing up the packaging, which is now labeled as being from Fox Video instead of CBS Fox. Speaking of that label change, we have a reissue of the special widescreen edition of A New Hope. This is a reissue of the 1989 copy, only now from Fox Video instead of CBS Fox Video. And also from Fox Video, we have a reissue of all three of the original trilogy films in full-screen Laserdisc. We have A New Hope here. Notice the black bar underneath. The Empire Strikes Back. And Return of the Jedi. Unfortunately, Return of the Jedi, not time compressed, but yes, again, A New Hope and The Empire Strikes Back are. Meanwhile, coinciding with the version inside the Special Letterbox Collector's Edition, we do see an independent release of From Star Wars to Jedi, The Making of a Saga, the third time it's been released on VHS. 1993 is a huge moment for Star Wars on home video, not just because the package itself is huge. This is the year we get the Star Wars Trilogy, the Definitive Collection, the widescreen Collector's Edition in the United States. These are standard play discs of all three original trilogy films that have now been THX remastered for better picture and sound quality, including a new sound mix from original elements. It also includes a lot of new bonus features, along with the George Lucas The Creative Impulse book in full, whereas the Special Letterbox Collector's Edition the previous year had an abridged version of it included. This will form the basis for the THX remastered editions in 1995 and the so-called unaltered trilogy on DVD in 2006 and 2008. 1994 sees no new Star Wars home video releases. Meanwhile, Japan saw their first release of what in the US had been released a year earlier, the widescreen collector's edition known as the Definitive Collection Laserdisc set. And whereas the US version of the full copy of George Lucas The Creative Impulse had no dust jacket, the Japanese version does, and it is of course the Japanese dust jacket. In 1995, the versions that were THX remastered for the Definitive Collection in 93 hit home as the THX remastered editions on VHS and Laserdisc. On VHS, we had a full-screen box set of the so-called brick shape, and there were two different releases of the THX widescreen edition, one that loads from the side, and one that picks up the top like a shoebox. Meanwhile, we had individual releases, as in the case with VHS, but not a box set, for Laserdisc. More extended play discs, this time not time compressed, all THX remastered, of A New Hope, The Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. Notice all widescreen, there was no full screen version on Laserdisc this time around. Meanwhile, in the US in 1995, we see the making of Star Wars getting a reissue as a mail-away from Kellogg's cereals, Corn Pops. The front of the packaging shown here, and there's the reverse. This version replaces William Conrad with Don LaFontaine as narrator and is the only version thus far to do so. We also see a re-release of From Star Wars to Jedi, The Making of a Saga, in new packaging here. Across the pond in the UK, we see the so-called Executor Set, the definitive collection on VHS rather than Laserdisc. This is all the THX remastered films, plus tons of bonus features, including all those classic behind-the-scenes specials, and From Star Wars to Jedi, The Making of a Saga, along with the script book and many other things, all in one special beefed-up set. Speaking of definitive collections, we have the definitive collection being reissued in Japan in 1995. This time it gets rid of the Creative Impulse, it changes its box type, and it adds in another pair of Laserdiscs in a separate jacket, which are the Making of Trilogy, or Making of the Trilogy, which is the making of Star Wars as told by C-3PO and R2-D2, SPFX The Empire Strikes Back, and Classic Creatures Return of the Jedi. The same year, Japan also sees the Star Wars Collector's Set Laserdiscs. In this case, they have added in the bonus item of another Laserdisc, including From Star Wars to Jedi, The Making of a Saga. It's kind of all over the place this year. 1996 featured no new home video releases of the Star Wars films. Meanwhile, though, 1996 did feature Star Wars, the interactive video board game, which includes a VHS tape that you play while playing the game, featuring a story called Assault on the Death Star. This brought back Dave Prowse and James Earl Jones to play Darth Vader, along with director of photography, Gilbert Taylor, and other former crew members and props and sets from A New Hope 20 years after filming of the film. 1996 was also the year of the release of a fairly common screener. Star Wars Animated Classics Ewoks, The Haunted Village, and again, a screener copy meant to go to stores to get them to put these in their stores when it came out in 97. In 1995, we've been told to pick up the VHS set then, because it was the original, one last time. Now it was 1997, and the reason became clear: we were to see it again for the first time, with the Star Wars Trilogy Special Edition in theaters and on home video. On VHS, we have a full screen release here on the left, and a widescreen release there on the right, going gold for the one, and platinum, supposedly, or silver for the other. There was also, for the bigger spender, in widescreen, the Star Wars Trilogy Special Edition Limited Edition Collector's Set, which pulled all the little featurettes from the beginning of these releases about the making of the special editions and put them on a separate VHS tape along with other goodies. There was also a Laserdisc set this year, the last time the Star Wars films would be issued on a Laserdisc in the United States. The Star Wars Trilogy Special Edition widescreen set, a mixture of extended play and standard play discs, giving us one last opportunity to see the Star Wars films on Laserdisc in the US. Also in 1990, we had the Star Wars Animated Classics releases of Ewoks, The Haunted Village, noted at last year, and Droids, The Pirates and the Prince, made up of the second story arc of that animated series, whereas Ewoks was basically just 4 random episodes out of Season 1. As noted, these are feature-length adventures that have been edited together and rescored. There were apparently some retailers, by the way, in 1997 that offered a lithograph of the cover art when you picked up the set. We would see many more of these type of bonuses in the future. In Japan, Laserdisc box sets continued with the Star Wars Trilogy Special Edition in this Laserdisc set with package that is noticeably different from the US Laserdisc, but actually kind of similar to the US VHS widescreen release. 1998 saw no new Star Wars home video releases. 1999, despite The Phantom Menace being in theaters, had no new Star Wars home video releases. In 2000, we had reached the point where Star Wars films could be released in theaters and then show up on home video the next year if they're an original film, as opposed to the special editions, so The Phantom Menace finally arrived in 2000. We have the Widescreen Video Collector's Edition. It's the only way to get the film on VHS in widescreen in the United States, though the tape from inside often shows up on the secondary market as if it had been marketed separately. It was not. You can also have bought it in many locations as a full screen copy here on the left, or picked up the lenticular cover gold clamshell case by pre-ordering through Toys R Us. That actually includes the one on the left inside it. For those hunting down screeners, yes, this was also the year of the Episode 1 The Phantom Menace screener being released, for those who are curious. This was also the last year we'd see VHS releases at all of the original trilogy. We have the final boxed bricks here on the left, full screen on the right, widescreen. The boxes underneath are the same, the slip covers have clear areas that are different. Notice it is the same battle there on the bottom, it's just a question of what the white parts on the outer cover are covering up. Now in 2000 there was a lot of demand out there for Star Wars films on DVD, but that hadn't happened yet. In the US, we wouldn't see the DVD release of The Phantom Menace until the next year, or the original trilogy until 2004, 4 years later. So we had a lot of importing of Laserdiscs from Japan, and video discs known as VCDs from Malaysia, among other places. This is that heavily imported Star Wars original trilogy box set of VCDs from Malaysia, and the Laserdisc set, which didn't exist in the United States, of this release from Japan. We also then saw The Phantom Menace released on Laserdisc in Japan, heavily imported into the US because we would not get one. And then again, also a VCD release from Malaysia of The Phantom Menace, a 2-disc release, sometimes sold like this, sometimes sold with a slipcover. 2001 is another major year in the evolution of Star Wars on home video in the US. This year sees the first ever release of a Star Wars film on DVD, with The Phantom Menace here in widescreen. Notice the top does not say widescreen, since every saga has a beginning, and there is no full screen equivalent this year. It seems as though widescreen was what they expected people to want on DVD, and full screen was kind of an afterthought. Meanwhile, in 2001, though it's not an official Star Wars release, we have PBS's Joseph Campbell and the Power of Myth with Bill Moyers. This is a 6-part documentary miniseries where Bill Moyers interviews Joseph Campbell about the power of myth and his whole concept of the monomyth. This includes a bonus interview with George Lucas about mythology, but we'll be able to find the full version on the mythology of Star Wars coming up in about 3 years. 2002 continues that slow transition from VHS to DVD as the dominant form of home video. We see the release of The Phantom Menace in full screen. Again, the previous year, it was widescreen only. Seemed like that was what they were trying to do for DVD exclusively. People wanted full screen, so now there's a full screen version. And unlike the previous one that didn't say widescreen at the top, this one does say full screen. We're picking up with that gold for widescreen and blue for full screen labeling type that is going to continue on for a while. Speaking of that style, we also have Attack of the Clones on widescreen and full screen DVD. This was the very first time that a Star Wars film that was not a special edition re-release of a previous film was able to hit home video in the same year it was in theaters. Along with this, we have Attack of the Clones on VHS. In the United States, there was only a full screen release. There is no corresponding US widescreen version of Attack of the Clones. This is also the last Star Wars film in the US to get a VHS release. Revenge of the Sith will not, making it impossible to have a full American set of the prequels on VHS. But speaking of sets, we saw the full-screen VHS and DVD versions of Attack of the Clones and The Phantom Menace put together into what we refer to as the Saga Video Pack for VHS and the Saga DVD Pack for DVD. There are no corresponding widescreen versions of these weird box sets. 2002 was also the year that R2-D2 Beneath the Dome, that mockumentary that had aired on Fox and on StarWars.com, saw release on DVD through Best Buy and Musicland stores. Despite the prequels being in full swing, 2003 has no new Star Wars home video releases. Meanwhile, 2003 sees the Thx Ultimate Demo Disc, which does have some Star Wars content, handed out to certified THX installers on DVD. 2004 is another landmark year in Star Wars home video. They just keep on coming in this era. 2004 gives us the original trilogy on DVD for the very first time, in a new version beyond the regular original version or the special editions. There's sort of the more special or the specialer editions here. These include a bonus disc with, among other things, Empire of Dreams. We then had the Star Wars Animated Adventures DVDs. These are double features where the first disc is the same special, The Pirates and the Prince for Droids, and The Haunted Village for Ewoks, that appeared in 1997, 4 episodes edited together into a feature-length adventure. There's also another set of 4 episodes edited together into feature-length adventures on each. For Droids, it's Treasure of the Hidden Planet, and for Ewoks, it's Tales from the Indoor Woods. We also saw another double feature DVD, Ewok Adventures, which includes Caravan of Courage and The Battle for Endor. All three of these at Costco and other box stores like that received a special box set version of those three, known as the Star Wars double feature DVDs. For those looking for variants, in 2004 you could have gotten the widescreen or full screen version of the original Trilogy DVD set in this sort of anti-theft packaging that you saw in places like Costco and Sam's Club in the US. It's basically just cardboard packaging around the regular release. Nothing all that special. Meanwhile, 2004 sees the release of the Thx Ultimate Demo Disc again, this time in a version that's presented by Onkyo and presented to people in home video stores to showcase the Thx sound system. We then have The Mythology of Star Wars from PBS getting a DVD release. And we have the first PVD, personal video disc release for the Video Now player, Star Wars Volume 1, although the next year's version of the same thing will also be called Star Wars Volume 1. We have The Story of Star Wars, which includes 3 discs, the story of Luke Skywalker, the story of Anakin Skywalker, and Behind the Scenes of Star Wars, which at least this year doesn't really live up to its name. 2005 sees quite a few new releases here. We have a new repackage and reissue of the original Trilogy DVD set from the previous year, this time without the bonus disc, just the films. We then have full screen and widescreen releases of Revenge of the Sith on DVD, and at Target, they come with exclusive collector coins. This is the first Star Wars film released in the United States that does not have a VHS version. We then have the Clone Wars microseries by Giddy Tartakovsky, the first 2 seasons as Volume 1, the last season as Volume 2, both released on DVD in the same year. And the bonus lightsaber action DVD, or at least the first one of these 2, this one including 2 episodes from the first season of Clone Wars. And yes, just like the original trilogy the previous year, you could get that Anti-Theft Club packaging for Revenge of the Sith. In this case, this is a widescreen example. If you're a Best Buy Reward Zone member and bought Revenge of the Sith there, or the game Battlefront 2, you would get this exclusive Best Buy lithograph. Or I should say, this lithograph in that packaging. Also in 2005, George Lucas was honored with the Life Achievement Award, the 33rd given out by the American Film Institute. Those who attended the ceremony that was then televised on USA Network were able to get this booklet about George Lucas, and a select group of people attending the ceremony got this DVD box set that's incredibly rare, the 2005 AFI Life Achievement Award, a tribute to George Lucas boxed set in this acrylic packaging. What's inside? It's just the newest versions of the various releases of the George Lucas films. So we have the original trilogy set from 2004, the 2001 Phantom Menace widescreen DVD, the 2002 Attack of the Clones widescreen DVD, and then the current copies at the time of American Graffiti, THX 1138, and the widescreen set of The Adventures of Indiana Jones. Notice there is no Kingdom of the Crystal Skull yet, thank goodness, because that movie hadn't been released yet. And at the time that this award was given, Revenge of the Sith hadn't hit home video yet, so Revenge of the Sith is not included, even though this was done in 2005. 2005 also saw the release of the rather expensive limited edition version of the book Dressing a Galaxy in a special case here, which includes an exclusive DVD. Meanwhile, in 2005, in the United States, we saw the second release of the Video Now PVD The Story of Star Wars Volume 1, or Volume SW1. This one still said it had the story of Luke Skywalker, the story of Anakin Skywalker, and Behind the Scenes of Star Wars, but now that third disc has been dumped from the previous release, and we have all new content, which actually does have some behind the scenes of Episode 3 footage, this time living up to its name, more or less. The story of Luke Skywalker and the story of Anakin Skywalker from the PVDs are also released as a Walmart exclusive The Story of Star Wars bonus DVD, which is included with the widescreen version of Revenge of the Sith. Speaking of Revenge of the Sith, in the UK and other territories, there were VHS copies of Revenge of the Sith, just not in the United States. Back in the US, when we're talking screeners, this was the year of the A&E Emmy screener, for your consideration, of Star Wars Empire of Dreams, which included the version of the documentary that appeared on A&E, not in the previous year's DVD set. We then also had the release of the soundtrack to Revenge of the Sith, which includes a DVD called Star Wars: A Musical Journey. And if that wasn't enough for us to cover for 2005, this year also saw the release of Trivial Pursuit DVD, Star Wars Saga Edition, which includes 2 DVDs with questions for gaining your wedges and for winning the game. There was a regular edition, which is this one, and there was a limited edition collector's tin numbered edition. 2006 brought us another reissue of the original trilogy on DVD, the third in 3 years, but it did bring us something new. These were the so-called limited editions, sold individually this time, which came with a bonus disc for each film that included the so-called unaltered version of the film. We know that's not exactly the case because this is basically just the Definitive Collection Laserdisc Master, or Thx Remastered Edition Master, which is the same thing, put onto those discs in letterboxed format. Except in the case of A New Hope, in which it's mostly that version, but a good film version was used to give us the crawl without the subtitle. So we have our individual releases here of A New Hope in full screen and widescreen. And if you went to Walmart, you could buy a collector's pack that includes the film in widescreen, but not full screen, and an adaptation of the film. Oddly enough, the adaptation inside is the entire adaptation, not the single issue shown on the cover here. And it's from Dark Horse Comics, who had the license at the time, not from Marvel, even though Marvel originally published it. We have The Empire Strikes Back, same thing, limited edition, full screen, widescreen, still that whole blue and gold thing. Then its comic version, again, Marvel on the outside, Dark Horse on the inside, but it is essentially that cover, albeit tweaked. Return of the Jedi, same thing. And if you bought the trilogy at Best Buy, you get a collector's tin from Best Buy. That was the only way to have a supposed boxed set, essentially, of these DVDs at the moment. We wouldn't see a real box set for wide release for 2 more years. Just like with Revenge of the Sith at Best Buy in 2005 and 2006, if you had bought any of these releases in the limited edition form at Circuit City, you would have gotten a collectible lithograph for the individual film you purchased. These are the outsides of those lithograph folders, and these are the lithographs themselves. If buying at Target, a little mini lithograph, so to speak, of basically concept art from that film was actually included inside the DVD case for each film. Just like with Dressing a Galaxy the previous year, 2006, saw a limited edition box set release of Sculpting a Galaxy, again with an exclusive DVD. 2007, despite being the 30th anniversary of A New Hope in theaters, only really gives us the second bonus lightsaber action DVD with 2 episodes of the Clone Wars microseries on it, episodes 24 and 25. Meanwhile, in 2007, we also have the Thx Demo Disc 2 released, which includes scenes from Revenge of the Sith. We have Star Wars Tech, as seen on the History Channel, being released through StarWarsShop.com as an exclusive DVD release. And then we have screeners being sent out of Star Wars The Legacy Revealed, also from the History Channel. 2008 was also full of firsts for Star Wars on home video in the US. We had our first box set of all 3 of the prequel trilogy films. This is basically the widescreen versions of the prequel trilogy films from 2001, 2002, and 2005, put in slim cases and then put into a boxed set with a little slip cover. And then we had an original trilogy set done in the same way that includes the 2006 releases of the original trilogy films with those supposed unaltered editions. This was also the year that saw the Clone Wars film in theaters and then on home video with a very quick turnaround, which meant our first time of seeing Star Wars content on Blu-ray and with digital copies. We have a regular version here on the left. This is the Blu-ray version that has a lenticular cover, or at least a lenticular slip cover, of Asajj Ventress and Anakin Skywalker. Here on the right, a special version released exclusively through Target with a slip cover with alternate art, packaging with alternate art, and a packed-in alternate cover copy of Shipyards of Doom, a comic book from the Clone Wars Digest series from Dark Horse Comics. On DVD, you had a single disc release of just the film, and a 2-disc special edition with special features that also had a lenticular slipcover, like the Blu-ray regular version. You had a similar exclusive from Target that again packed in the comic and had alternate art. And then we saw the first time there was a steelbook release of anything Star Wars in the US with a Best Buy exclusive steelbook of the 2-disc DVD version. The majority of these also came with a digital copy of the film, which was included on a separate disc most times, same disc other times, actually inside the packaging. These were digital copies that did not have to be downloaded. Downloadable or streaming digital copies wouldn't come until The Force Awakens. Meanwhile, also in the US, we saw the release of the Art of Star Wars 16-month 2008 wall calendar that includes a DVD inside with 12 original movie trailers and the LEGO Star Wars special Revenge of the Brick. Meanwhile, over in the UK, we saw the release of the Clone Wars film on UMD, which is basically the media disc used for the PlayStation Portable game system. While the game system did exist in the US, the Clone Wars on UMD did not. 2009 brought us the first releases for the Clone Wars television series. We have the 4 episodes set here, A Galaxy Divided, which includes Ambush and the Malevolence arc. There is a Walmart exclusive version that also includes Downfall of a Droid. We then have Clone Commandos with Rookies and the Ryloth trilogy. We then have the first TV series season for Star Wars ever collected, assuming you don't count the Clone Wars micro-series because it wasn't really a standard TV show. We have the Clone Wars, the complete Season 1 on Blu-ray, and here on the right on DVD. Note here, these are the digibooks that come with a bound-in set of production art and whatnot as a little booklet. These would be supplanted a couple of years later by more standard cases. Also, in the lead up to Season 2 of the Clone Wars this year, we saw a Rise of the Bounty Hunters screener being sent out to some outlets. This includes a DVD and a CDR. The DVD includes the episodes Holocron Heist and Cargo of Doom. 2010 brought us the Clone Wars, the complete Season 2 in digibook form, with Blu-ray on the left, DVD on the right. This time the little book wasn't bound into it, but there was a little slip part that you could stick the book into that was bound into it, still looking like a hardback book. And then from Walmart, there were 3 exclusives, which were packs that had 2 toys, 2 action figures, and 1 DVD from the Malevolence arc with a little cardboard jacket. We have Rising Malevolence, Shadow of Malevolence, and Destroy Malevolence. Also in 2010, but just too big to fit with anything else, we have the 20th Century Fox 75th Anniversary Collection DVD set of 75 films, of which A New Hope in the DVD cut from 2004 is one. Meanwhile, in 2010, Target released a pair of 4 action figure packs, each of which came with the same DVD, Bounty Hunters, which includes a little sort of clip show about the bounty hunters rather than any actual episodes. 2011 is another major year for Star Wars on home video. We start with the first time that any of the live-action films are released on Blu-ray with the Complete Saga. It includes 6 discs, 1 each for the existing live-action films at this point, plus 3 bonus discs, 1 for the prequels, 1 for the original trilogy, and 1 of spoofs and documentaries. I would note that at some locations, I believe including Best Buy, if you pre-ordered the Complete Saga, you got a special little film cell to tide you over while you waited. You could also buy the prequels separately on Blu-ray, or the original trilogy separately on Blu-ray, but the bonus discs were not included, just the film disc, which meant the only bonus features were a pair of audio commentaries. This year also saw the beginning of LEGO Star Wars releases on Blu-ray or DVD, in this case a Blu-ray and DVD combo pack of LEGO Star Wars The Padawan Menace, with an exclusive minifigure of young Han Solo. There'll be a bit of a backslide to the different releases we'll get for LEGO Star Wars that will eventually pick up relatively recently. 2011 also saw the release of the complete Season 3 of The Clone Wars on Blu-ray and DVD, this time in regular cases instead of digibooks. To go with that, the first 2 seasons were reissued in regular cases. We have the DVD and Blu-ray copies here of the complete Season 1, and then the Blu-ray and DVD copies there of the complete Season 2. Walmart also got another pair of packs that included 2 action figures and 2 DVDs, that is, 1 DVD each with 2 action figures. This time from the Geonosis arc of Season 2, we had Landing at Point Rain and Weapons Factory. Other pre-order bonuses for the Complete Saga set released this year include the Own Every Moment t-shirt from Best Buy, found usually if it's still sealed in a package with this image on top of the folded shirt. A limited edition pre-order lithograph you could get from Comic-Con in 2011 in San Diego. A set of 8 limited edition collectible lithographs available through Target. And in some regions outside the US, you didn't just have a Cinetype for the Complete Saga like you did at Best Buy in the US. You could also get Cinetype film cells for the prequel trilogy orders and original trilogy orders. Also this year, digitally, about a year after we saw a theatrical version of all 3 of the Night Sisters episodes from the Clone Wars put together into the Night Sisters trilogy feature-length production in some selected theaters, we finally see the release of that through iTunes. 2012 brought us much more Clone Wars. We had Darth Maul Returns, which are the final 4 episodes of Season 4 merged together into a feature-length story, very much like what happened with Ewoks and Droids. Then we had the Blu-ray and DVD releases of the Clone Wars, the complete Season 4. And then Walmart finished out the Geonosis arc with another pair of toy packs with 1 DVD and 2 action figures each for Legacy of Terror and Brain Invaders. Digitally, 2012 sees a weird iTunes pack called Jedi Masters. It's episodes of the Clone Wars, including Ambush, Rising Malevolence, Jedi Crash, and Liberty on Ryloth from the first season, along with Children of the Force and Grievous Intrigue from the second. 2013 was the year of what I call the Blitz of 2013, where quite a few Star Wars home video releases were released within about a 2-week stretch, though not all of these. Basically all these except these down here in the corner. We start with the first ever Blu-ray DVD combo packs for the Star Wars films. We have the prequels on the left, the original trilogy on the right. This is also the first time that the Blu-ray cut of the films from 2011 were made available on DVD, superseding those from the original DVD cuts in 2004. We then had a new LEGO Star Wars release, LEGO Star Wars The Empire Strikes Out. Gone is the Blu-ray DVD combo pack. Now it's just DVD, but at least it still has a minifigure Darth Vader with a medal. The next LEGO Star Wars release took another step backward. It is Star Wars The Yoda Chronicles, The Phantom Clone and Menace of the Sith. Not only are these only 2 episodes out of 3 of the Yoda Chronicles, it's also only DVD with no minifigure. For Clone Wars, we saw the release of the Clone Wars 3-pack. It repacked the discs from the Walmart exclusive version of A Galaxy Divided, Clone Commandos, and Darth Maul Returns. We then saw the release of the Clone Wars, the complete Season 5, on Blu-ray and DVD. And because Clone Wars was ending on Cartoon Network, all of its seasons were collected, and we got the Clone Wars Seasons 1 through 5 Collector's Edition in Blu-ray and DVD with identical packaging right down to the markings on it, so there's no way to tell which is Blu-ray or DVD from the outside, which did not include the film, and of course would not include the 6th season, which would air through Netflix. Now there was an issue with Season 5 Disc 2 in this set on Blu-ray and the season set on Blu-ray, so if you were to send off for them through Warner Home Video, you could get replacement discs for each. The top one there being from the season set, the bottom one there being from the collector's edition of Seasons 1 through 5. 2013 sees another of those weird iTunes episode packs, this one called Lightsaber Duels, not to be confused with the Nintendo Wii video game of the same name, which includes the episodes of the Clone Wars Cloak of Darkness, Lair of Grievous, The Hidden Enemy, Night Sisters, Witches of the Mist, and Revenge. Meanwhile, fans in the UK had a chance to get the Blu-ray trilogies for the prequel trilogy and original trilogy in steelbook form for the first time. 2014 is what you might call an eclectic year in Star Wars home video. We had A New Hope translated into the Navajo language. Yes, that's an American release, but it's in a Native American language, not English. That is the Navajo language of Dene. It's the first major motion picture to get a full dub in that. That is a major, major historical moment as far as cultural heritage preservation. Then we have The Clone Wars from Netflix, The Lost Missions, or Season 6 on Blu-ray and DVD. For LEGO Star Wars, they pulled the DVDs out of the Padawan Menace, Empire Strikes Out, and Yoda Chronicles original releases and stuck them into one package here, a compilation. Unfortunately, no minifigures, no Blu-ray. Then we have Star Wars Rebels, Spark of Rebellion. The series had premiered, and its double-length episode got its own DVD release here with the 4 little shorts, plus a pack-in little paper model of the Ghost. This is the double-length version, not split into 2 episodes, but it is missing the Darth Vader intro from ABC because it hadn't aired yet. Then an odd release, but yes, an official Disney release of a sort of crossover for Star Wars, which is Phineas and Ferb's Star Wars on DVD. This had a pack-in keychain. Around this time in 2014, we also saw iTunes digitally release a pack called LEGO Star Wars The Complete Brick Saga So Far. It included the Padawan Menace, The Empire Strikes Out, and all of the Yoda Chronicles from both Cartoon Network and Disney XD, including the episode number 3 that had not been released on physical home media. It is also in 2014 where the expanded universe or official continuity is made into the Legends continuity and set aside in light of a new canonical continuity being built by Disney and Lucasfilm, along with more modern films and whatnot. The first new entries into this new continuity appear in 2014, with the first prose story being Blade Squadron Part 1 in Star Wars Insider number 149, though the subscriber cover calls it 148 incorrectly, and John Jackson Miller's A New Dawn, a prequel to Rebels, that kicks off in July with an exclusive advanced readers edition handed out for free at San Diego Comic-Con, and then in September with the regular hardback release. 2015 brought us more re-releases of Blu-rays of the original trilogy and prequel trilogy, plus some more cartoons. We have the Steelbook releases of individual films for The Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith, A New Hope, The Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi there. The first Blu-ray Steelbooks that we've gotten, at least in the United States. For Rebels, we had the complete Season 1 on Blu-ray and DVD. The Blu-ray includes those 4 shorts. The DVD does not, and both of these treat Spark of Rebellion as 2 episodes instead of 1. We had an oft-overlooked Complete Saga reissue. This is the 9-disc set from 2011 on Blu-ray reissued. No, there is not a corresponding DVD release of this, though there's a really good-looking bootleg out there that purports to be. And then for LEGO Star Wars, we had the new Yoda Chronicles, which is all 4 episodes of the Yoda Chronicles from Disney XD, but since the Yoda Chronicles are all essentially one long series from Cartoon Network to Disney XD, it's actually more like there are 7 episodes. The first 2 from Cartoon Network had been released, now all the ones for Disney XD have. The 3rd episode has not been released on physical home media at all and has to be gotten through iTunes or somewhere like that to have it at all. Also in 2015, we saw the Digital Movie Collection, or the Digital HD Movie Collection, that finally released the original 6 live-action films through digital platforms as purchases, rather than bonus copies or the like. Meanwhile, in 2015, the year of the US Steelbooks, if you really wanted even more Steelbooks, you could have bought the complete Season 1 of Rebels from the UK in a Zavvi exclusive Steelbook. Also in 2015, Marvel Comics starts contributing to the new canonical timeline with Star Wars #1, its first new issue since regaining the license. Let's face it, for home video, 2016 was the year of The Force Awakens, but there were other releases too. For LEGO Star Wars, we had Droid Tales, the entire series on DVD, with a little thing of pack-in cards. Unfortunately, each one came with 3 predetermined cards, and there were 9 to collect, so unless you bought it over and over again, you'd never get all of them. Screw that. We then had the complete Season 1 of LEGO Star Wars The Freemaker Adventures on Blu-ray and on DVD, both of which included a set of 6 character-focused magnets. Then, we had Star Wars Rebels Complete Season 2 on Blu-ray and on DVD. Thus begins the retailer-exclusive ridiculousness. The Force Awakens was released a lot in the US. Initially, you could do a limited edition digital movie pre-order that included 3 collectible posters. This was a digital-only version of the film with all of its bonus features. If you pre-ordered from the Disney Store, you would get a set of lithographs. However, even ordering from the Disney Store, Disney's own store, you would get the regular Blu-ray, DVD, and digital combo pack for the film. That's a big deal, though, because it's Blu-ray and DVD and a digital copy, which is a first for Star Wars. If instead you went to Target, you had a retailer-exclusive copy of the same discs, but the digital code included 2 extra bonus features. If you went to Walmart, you could get the BB-8 focused variant here, same discs, this time with a Galactic Connections trading disc, little POG-looking thing included as well, for that also Walmart-exclusive game. If you went to Best Buy, you get the exact same discs again as a Steelbook, or you could settle for just the DVD release available widely. Notice no slipcover. Near the end of the year, the regular versions were released again through Walmart, that Blu-ray DVD digital combo pack, and just the standard DVD version on home video, but this time it had special Christmassy packaging and was a Walmart exclusive. Between this blitz and the holiday re-release, we saw the release of an updated version as the Star Wars The Force Awakens 3D Collector's Edition, including a Blu-ray 3D disc, the first of any kind like that for Star Wars, plus an updated film disc now with an audio commentary, plus an updated bonus disc with new bonus features, including the ones that were digital exclusives, including those digital exclusives from Target, as well as other digital platforms, and you had the DVD packed in along with a digital copy as well. I would note here that I'm showing you two of those 3D collector's editions because there is one exclusive to Walmart that came with an extra little postcard-sized lithograph. Meanwhile, in 2016, if that didn't fit your The Force Awakens cravings, we have more. The UK handled The Force Awakens a little bit differently. They did not do Blu-ray DVD digital combo packs. Instead, you had an initial release here of just the regular Blu-ray film disc and the bonus disc with no DVD, no digital version, as what's referred to as the light side edition or dark side edition, with basically just different sleeves. Then retailer Zavvi had an exclusive steelbook that varies slightly from the US steelbook. If you wanted the DVD, you had to buy it separately. Then later in the year, we saw the release of the 3D Collector's Edition of The Force Awakens, and again, this is slightly different than in the US. You have the Blu-ray 3D disc, the regular Blu-ray, the Blu-ray bonus disc, but again, no digital copy and no DVD. They also released what's referred to as the Big Sleeve Edition in this LP-sized packaging with art cards. This one basically just repackaged the updated Blu-ray discs from this one, no Blu-ray 3D disc, but instead tossed in the DVD for the first Blu-ray DVD combo pack of any kind for The Force Awakens for the UK. Again, though, still no digital copy. Over in Japan, we had the premium limited edition boxed set from MovieNex. This included a steelbook version, very similar to the UK version here, but it did include both Blu-rays plus a DVD plus a digital copy, plus a guide, plus art prints and a frame to put them in, plus a Kylo Ren action figure. Definitely the most awesome way to check out The Force Awakens, but a set that never hit US shores. 2017 is best known for the home video release of Rogue One in the US. We have a regular DVD version with just Disney Movie Reward points, no digital copy. Then we have a Blu-ray DVD digital HD combo pack that does include that digital copy along with giving you Disney Movie Reward points. And if you had bought either of these through Disney Store, you'd get yourself a set of Disney Store exclusive lithographs. Or, if you had ordered these through Disney Movie Club, you could have gotten a special Disney Movie Club mini lithograph. Or, keeping in mind that you have to go to the website to be able to get those reward points or to be able to get that digital copy, if you redeemed those through the website, you could then also get a special order to get a couple of Star Wars Rogue One decals. As to retailer exclusives, we have a Walmart retailer exclusive, which is basically just this version inside a different slipcover with a Velcroed K2SO on the front. It also includes two exclusive Star Wars Galactic Connections trading discs, exclusive to this release, but not exclusive as far as the game is concerned. They're just random ones from the regular game. Then over at Best Buy, we had a Rogue One Steelbook, and at Target, we had a Rogue One release with little cards you can swap in and out to change which character's on the cover. Now, both of these include the 3D Blu-ray release, which is not available in any of these other sets in the US. I would also note that the Target version, which I've now opened up and spread out here, actually includes a bonus DVD with some extra special features that is not available in any other set for Rogue One in the US. This year also saw the release of Star Wars Rebels, the complete Season 3, on both Blu-ray and DVD. Very late in the year, with no fanfare or official announcements, we saw several reissues available exclusively through Walmart. This is the 6-movie collection, which is actually just the 2015 reissue of the Complete Saga set with a new slipcover. A prequel trilogy and an original trilogy set, which are basically both just the 2013 trilogy sets on Blu-ray and DVD that have different slipcovers on them now. A new DVD release of The Force Awakens, just different packaging. A new Blu-ray release of The Force Awakens, again, original version inside with just a new slipcover. And then a similar approach taken for a Blu-ray and DVD pack here for Rogue One. But notice what it says on the little sticker. Every single one of these includes an exclusive DVD, and that DVD includes Forces of Destiny Volume 1. The first time we've ever seen Forces of Destiny get a home video release of any kind. Meanwhile, in the UK, Rogue One was also released. They had a regular DVD release, and this was the original regular Blu-ray release with a limited edition sleeve over top of it. The UK also saw, unlike the United States, a wide release of the film in Blu-ray 3D, so it's a Blu-ray 3D and Blu-ray combo pack. And then a similar combo pack was released as an exclusive steelbook through Zavvi. Speaking of retailer exclusives, Tesco Extra was the source of the retailer exclusive big sleeve edition for Rogue One in the UK, which included the Blu-ray and DVD versions, but not the 3D version. And if you bought any of the regular versions at Sainsbury's, you could get a free copy of the junior novelization of Rogue One. In Japan, we saw the release of a Rogue One Premium Limited Box Edition from MovieNex, which is similar to the Force Awakens one, but not quite the same. This one includes some art cards, an international steelbook with no text on it for the film, and it comes with an SH Figuarts version of a Death Trooper figure rather than just a regular retail one stuck into the box. Meanwhile, over in China, Blue fans got into the steelbook act with a worldwide exclusive steelbook with 3 different types of slipcovers released as 3 different releases, or together in the so-called one-click box that includes all 3, plus a nifty little holder to put in the individual poster cards that come with the 3 steelbooks. The 3 steelbooks themselves were the double lenticular version with lenticular images on both sides, a single lenticular version with a lenticular version on one side and a regular image on the back, and then a regular slipcover featuring BB-8 that's a little fuzzy feeling, which is regular on both sides outside of that fuzzy feeling on the front. These are Blu-ray and Blu-ray 3D discs, but the Blu-ray bonus disc only appears in the double lenticular version. They each again come with a little fold-out art card, either a booklet or another series of art cards, a certificate of authenticity, and an individual number out of a limited release. The double lenticular is out of a limited release of 1,700, the other 2 out of 900 each, and then if you buy the one-click set, which will set you back a few $100s, all 3 included have matching numbers. And that is where we stand as of the end of 2017 in Star Wars Home Video. Though I would be remiss if I didn't mention that in May of 2017, I saw the release of my book, A Saga on Home Video, A Fan's Guide to U.S. Star Wars Home Video Releases, which you can find on Amazon.com. Expect more updated versions of this video timeline as time progresses.